My brother got $60,000 for his restaurant that failed within 8 months. I asked for help with medical bills after my accident and my father said I'd made my choices. I left that day. Now they're parked outside my gallery asking why I won't let them in. My name is Elena. Or maybe I should start somewhere else. I don't know. I've been sitting here trying to write this for maybe 3 days. 4 days. The cursor keeps blinking. My hands keep shaking. There's cold coffee next to me. I made it this morning. Or yesterday morning. Time does that thing where it blurs. I had a brother named Marcus. Have a brother. Present tense. He's still alive somewhere. 34 years old now. Maybe 35. His birthday is in March. Or April. I used to know these things. Used to keep track. Don't anymore. Growing up was strange. Not bad exactly. Just strange. Marcus was the golden child. That's what they call it in therapy. Dr. Yun used that phrase. Golden child. I didn't understand what it meant at first. Thought it sounded dramatic. Like something from a fairy tale. But that's what he was. Golden. Everything he touched turned special in my parents' eyes. In my mother Catherine's eyes especially. My father Robert followed her lead on most things. Still does probably. Marcus played football in high school. I remember sitting in those metal bleachers every Friday night. October cold. November cold. My mother would scream his name. My father would record everything on his camcorder. The old kind. With the tapes. This was before phones did that. I played violin. First chair in the school orchestra. Had a concert the same night as one of Marcus's games. My parents went to the game. Said they'd try to make it to the concert after. They didn't make it. Traffic they said. Or maybe they said the game ran long. I can't remember which excuse. I played my solo to a crowd that included my violin teacher and some parents of other students. Not mine. Never mine. Afterward my teacher Mrs. Park said I'd done beautifully. Said I should consider music school. I said maybe. Told my parents about it later. About music school. My mother was loading the dishwasher. She said that sounds expensive. My father was reading the newspaper. He said we'll see. We'll see meant no. I learned that early. We'll see meant don't ask again. Marcus wanted to go to culinary school after high school. Not college. Culinary school. The fancy kind in San Francisco. My mother researched it immediately. My father called to ask about tuition. They visited the campus. All 3 of them. I stayed home. Had homework probably. The school cost $45,000 a year. Or $50,000. Somewhere in that range. My parents said they'd make it work. Said Marcus had a gift. Said cooking was an art form. Said they were proud of him for knowing what he wanted. I was applying to colleges at the same time. State schools mostly. The kind with reasonable tuition. My guidance counselor Mr. Lee said I should apply to better schools. Said my grades were excellent. Top 5% of my class. Maybe top 3%. I don't remember exactly. I applied to one private school. Just one. A small liberal arts college 3 hours away. The application fee was $75. I saved up from my job at the library. Shelving books after school. $7.25 an hour. Took me forever to save $75. Got accepted. Full tuition scholarship. Room and board would be $14,000 a year. Or $16,000. Somewhere around there. I showed my parents the acceptance letter. The scholarship letter. The financial aid package. My mother was making dinner. She said that's nice honey. My father was watching television. Some news program. He said how much would we need to pay? I said $14,000 a year for room and board. Or maybe I said $16,000. The number is fuzzy now. He said we're already paying for Marcus's school. I said but I have a full scholarship. The tuition is covered. He said $14,000 is still a lot of money. My mother said maybe you should stay local. Save money. I went to the state school. Lived at home. Commuted 40 minutes each way. My parents didn't pay anything. I worked at the library still. Added a weekend job at a coffee shop. Paid my own books. My own gas. My own everything. Marcus went to San Francisco. My parents drove him there. Helped him move into his apartment. Bought him furniture. Kitchen supplies. Everything a culinary student needs. I saw the credit card statements later. Not on purpose. They were on the counter. I was putting groceries away. Saw the total. $8,000. Or maybe $9,000. Just for moving him in. I didn't say anything. What would I say? Congratulations on spending $9,000 on Marcus while I eat ramen for dinner. That would have sounded bitter. I wasn't bitter. Or maybe I was. I don't know. Feelings are complicated. Marcus graduated from culinary school 3 years later. My parents flew out for the ceremony. Asked if I wanted to come. I had finals. Said I couldn't miss them. They said okay. Went without me. Came back with photos. Marcus in his chef whites. My mother beaming. My father proud. Marcus wanted to open a restaurant. His dream. A farm-to-table concept. Or maybe it was fusion cuisine. He explained it at Sunday dinner. I wasn't really listening. Was thinking about my own graduation coming up. About student loans. About finding a job. My parents were listening though. Listening intently. Marcus needed $60,000 to get started. Or maybe it was $70,000. The number kept changing depending on who he talked to. Investors. Business partners. Banks. My father said he'd help. My mother agreed immediately. They refinanced the house. Took out a home equity loan. Or maybe they used retirement savings. I'm not clear on the mechanics. Just know they got the money. Gave Marcus $60,000. Might have been $65,000. I heard them talking about it. Through the wall. My bedroom shared a wall with their bedroom. The walls were thin. I heard everything. My mother said it's an investment in his future. My father said he's going to do great things. I lay in bed listening. Doing math in my head. 60,000 divided by 4 years. 15,000 a year. That's what it would have cost for me to go to that liberal arts college. The one with the full scholarship. But I didn't say anything. What would I say? You're giving Marcus 15 years worth of my college in one lump sum. That would have sounded jealous. I wasn't jealous. Or maybe I was. I still don't know. I graduated college. My parents came to the ceremony. Sat in the back. Left early. Marcus had a meeting with investors. Or suppliers. Something restaurant related. They wanted to be there. For support. I found a job in the city. Working at an art gallery. Not as an artist. As a coordinator. Administrative stuff mostly. Scheduling exhibitions. Managing social media. Answering phones. It paid $32,000 a year. Or maybe $35,000. Enough to rent a small apartment. A studio. With a roommate. Marcus's restaurant opened 6 months later. Big party. My parents invited everyone they knew. Family. Friends. Neighbors. I went. Wore a dress I'd bought at a thrift store. Stood in the corner drinking wine from a glass that cost more than my dress probably. The restaurant was beautiful. I'll give him that. Exposed brick. Industrial lighting. Open kitchen so you could watch the chefs work. Marcus's dream realized. $60,000 realized. Or $65,000. My mother kept saying, "Isn't it wonderful?" My father kept shaking hands. Telling people about his son the chef. His son the entrepreneur. I stood there nodding. Smiling. Playing the supportive sister. The restaurant failed 8 months later. Or maybe 9 months. Somewhere around there. The reviews were mixed. The location was bad. The concept was too expensive. Too niche. Nobody came. Or not enough people came. Marcus closed the doors on a Tuesday. Or a Wednesday. I remember my mother crying on the phone. Saying it wasn't fair. Saying Marcus had worked so hard. My father saying they'd figure something out. I was at work when I heard. My mother called me. Said Marcus needs support right now. Said I should come home for dinner. Be there for him. I said I had plans. Did I have plans? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't remember. Went home anyway. Marcus was sitting at the kitchen table. Same table we grew up eating at. Same chairs. He looked defeated. My mother was making his favorite meal. Meatloaf. Or pot roast. Something comforting. My father was talking about next steps. Maybe Marcus could work at an established restaurant. Build his reputation. Try again later. Marcus wasn't really responding. Just sitting there. Looking at nothing. I asked if he needed anything. He said no. I asked about the $60,000. What happened to it? My mother got quiet. My father cleared his throat. Said business investments don't always work out. I said I know that. I was just asking. My father said it's not your concern, Elena. I said it kind of is my concern when you refinance the house. My mother said we don't need to talk about this right now. But we did talk about it. Later. After Marcus had gone upstairs. My father said Marcus is going through a difficult time. Said I needed to be more sensitive. I said I was being sensitive. I just asked a question. My mother said you've always been jealous of your brother. I said what? She said you heard me. You've never supported him. Always been critical. I said that's not true. My father said maybe you should go home, Elena. I said this is my home. He said you know what I mean. Your apartment. I left. Drove back to my studio. The one I shared with a roommate named Sophie. Or Sarah. She'd moved out the month before. New roommate moving in soon. I sat in my car in the parking lot. Trying to understand what had just happened. 3 years went by. Maybe 4. Time does that thing where it compresses. Work. Apartment. Rent. Bills. The usual rhythm of life. I changed jobs. Started working for a bigger gallery. Better pay. $45,000 a year. Or $48,000. Enough to live alone finally. Started creating art in my spare time. Had always drawn. Sketched. Painted a little. But never seriously. Just something I did. In the margins. In my downtime. Now I had more time. My own space. Started dedicating evenings to it. Mixed media mostly. Collage work. Found objects. Pieces that explored memory and family and belonging. Heavy themes. My roommate at the time said they were dark. Or maybe she said intense. I took it as a compliment. Put some pieces in a group show. Local gallery. Nothing fancy. Just an open call for emerging artists. Sold 2 pieces. $300 each. Or $200. After the gallery's commission I got maybe $400 total. Felt like a fortune. My parents didn't know about any of this. Didn't ask what I was doing. We talked maybe once a month. Obligatory phone calls. How's work? Fine. How's the weather? Fine. How's Marcus? Fine. That kind of conversation. Marcus was working as a sous chef somewhere. Or maybe a line cook. I wasn't clear on the hierarchy. My mother would mention him. Mention how hard he was working. How talented he was. How the restaurant failing wasn't his fault. Market conditions. Bad timing. Whatever excuse made it easier. Then I had my accident. This is the part that changed everything. Or maybe it didn't change anything. Maybe it just revealed what was already there. I was biking to work. This was maybe 5 years after Marcus's restaurant closed. Or 6 years. I'd gotten into cycling. Good exercise. Saved money on gas. Environmental friendly. All those reasons. A car ran a red light. Or maybe I ran the red light. The police report says the car ran it. But memory is strange. I remember the light being yellow. Or maybe orange. That color between yellow and red. Impact. Pain. Ambulance. Emergency room. Surgery on my left leg. Fractured femur. Or was it tibia? One of those leg bones. Metal rod inserted. Physical therapy for months. Medical bills that made my student loans look small. I had insurance through work. It covered some of it. Not all of it. Not even most of it. My deductible was $6,000. Or $8,000. Then the coinsurance kicked in. 20% of everything after the deductible. The surgery alone cost $40,000. Or $50,000. I did the math lying in the hospital bed. My portion would be around $15,000. Or maybe $18,000. Somewhere in that range. Plus physical therapy. Plus lost wages from missing work. Plus. Called my mother from the hospital. Told her what happened. She said, "Oh my God, are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine. We'll be fine. Had surgery. Need physical therapy." She said, "Do you need anything?" I said, "Actually, yes." Told her about the medical bills. About the $15,000. Or $18,000. Asked if they could help. Even just a loan. I'd pay them back. She got quiet. Said she needed to talk to my father. Called back the next day. Said they couldn't help. Said money was tight. Marcus was between jobs. Or looking for better opportunities. Something like that. Said they were sorry but they just couldn't. I said, "You gave Marcus $60,000 for a restaurant." She said that was different. I said, "How is it different?" She said it was an investment in his future. I said, "What about my future?" My father got on the phone. Said I needed to take responsibility for my own life. Said I was 31 years old. Or 32. Old enough to handle my own finances. I said I'm asking for help with medical bills from an accident. He said accidents happen. That's what insurance is for. I said insurance doesn't cover everything. He said maybe you should have gotten better insurance. I said I got the insurance my job offered. He said that sounds like a personal problem. Personal problem. Those words. I remember them clearly. Or maybe I don't remember them clearly. Maybe I've replayed them so many times they've become distorted. But I remember the feeling. The way my chest got tight. The way my hands started shaking. I said, "You refinanced the house for Marcus's restaurant." A restaurant that failed. My father said that's different. I said, "You keep saying that. Explain how it's different." He said Marcus had a dream. A vision. I said I have medical bills from an accident that wasn't my fault. He said, "You made your choices, Elena. You chose to bike to work. You chose that job with that insurance. You chose your life." I hung up. Or maybe he hung up. I can't remember who ended the call. Just remember sitting in that hospital bed. Morphine still in my system probably. Staring at the wall. The wall was beige. Or cream. Institutional color. Sophie came to visit. Or Sarah. Different friend. Emma. That was her name. Emma came to visit. Brought flowers. Said she was sorry about the accident. I told her about my parents. About the phone call. She said that's awful. I said I think I'm done. She said done with what? I said done with them. Done trying. Done hoping they'll be different. She said families are complicated. I said this isn't complicated. This is simple. They chose Marcus. They've always chosen Marcus. I'm done pretending that's okay. Set up a GoFundMe. Emma helped. Put my story there. Had an accident. Medical bills. Any help appreciated. Raised maybe $4,000. Or $5,000. From strangers. From co-workers. From people who didn't owe me anything. My parents didn't contribute. I don't know if they even saw it. Didn't send them the link. Didn't want their money anymore. Didn't want anything from them. Blocked their numbers from my hospital bed. Used my phone to do it. Click, click, done. My mother Catherine blocked. My father Robert blocked. Marcus blocked too. Why not? Complete the set. Emma said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Completely sure." She said, "What if there's an emergency?" I said, "There won't be." She said, "But what if?" I said, "Then they can figure it out without me." I've been figuring things out without them my whole life. Physical therapy took 6 months. Learned to walk properly again. The therapist Brian was patient. Said I was healing well. Said I had good attitude. I didn't feel like I had good attitude. Felt angry mostly. But I showed up. Did the exercises. Got stronger. Went back to work part-time first. Then full-time. My boss Karen was understanding. Said take all the time I needed. But I needed to work. Needed the income. Needed the distraction. Started making art again during physical therapy. Couldn't bike. Couldn't run. Could sit though. Could work with my hands. Made a series about broken things. Broken bones. Broken trust. Broken families. Very literal. My therapist later said I wasn't being subtle. I said I wasn't trying to be subtle. Dr. Yun. That's my therapist. Started seeing her maybe 6 months after the accident. Or 8 months. Emma suggested it. Said I seemed angry all the time. I said I had reason to be angry. She said that's exactly why you should talk to someone. First session with Dr. Yun, I sat on her couch. The couch was brown leather. Or maybe gray fabric. She asked why I was there. I said I cut off my family. She asked why. I told her the whole story. Marcus. The restaurant. The money. The accident. Everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked how I felt about it. I said angry. She said what else? I said betrayed. What else? Sad. What else? Relieved actually. She wrote something in her notebook. Asked if I felt guilty about cutting them off. I said sometimes. She said that's normal. Said guilt is how families maintain control even when they're not present. I said that sounds manipulative. She said it is manipulative. We talked about golden children. Scapegoats. Family systems. All these terms I'd never heard before. Or maybe I'd heard them but never applied them to my own life. She said I was the scapegoat. Marcus was the golden child. My parents had created roles and we'd played them. I said I didn't choose to play any role. She said exactly. But you can choose to stop playing now. I said I already did. I cut them off. She said that's one step. Now you need to build something new. What do you want to build? She asked that a lot. What do you want? Not what do your parents want. Not what Marcus wants. What do you want, Elena? I didn't know at first. Spent so many years trying to earn their approval. Trying to be worth noticing. Didn't know what I actually wanted. Took months of therapy to figure it out. I wanted to make art. Real art. Not just in my spare time. Not just as a hobby. As my actual life. My actual career. I wanted to create things that mattered. Things that said something. Things that made people feel what I'd felt. Isolation. Abandonment. Strength despite it all. Took a risk. A big one. Quit my gallery job. The stable one. The one with health insurance. Used my savings to rent a studio space. Small space. Just enough room for a desk. An easel. Storage for materials. $300 a month. Or $350. Spent a year creating. Just creating. Working part-time at a coffee shop to pay rent. Living on almost nothing. Rice. Beans. The cheapest groceries. Like college again. But different. This time it was my choice. Made maybe 40 pieces that year. Big pieces. Installation work. One series used medical bills. Actual bills from my accident. Collaged them with family photos. The photos were ones I'd taken from my parents' house. Before I'd cut contact. Just grabbed them. Didn't ask permission. The photos showed Marcus. Always Marcus. Marcus at football games. Marcus at culinary school. Marcus at the restaurant opening. Me in the background mostly. Or cropped out. Or missing entirely. Layered the medical bills over Marcus's face. Over my parents' smiling faces. Created these pieces that were beautiful and horrible at the same time. Emma saw them and cried. Said they were powerful. Said I needed to show them. Got into a group show first. Small gallery. Not the one I used to work at. Different one. Showed 3 pieces. Sold one. For $1,200. Or $1,500. After commission got maybe $1,000. Felt like winning the lottery. Reviews mentioned my work. Local art blog. Said I was an emerging talent. Said my work explored family trauma with unflinching honesty. Put that quote on my website. The website I'd built myself. Following YouTube tutorials. Got offered a solo show. Different gallery. Bigger one. Gallery owner named Martin saw my work at the group show. Said he wanted to see more. I showed him my studio. All 40 pieces. He walked around not saying anything. Just looking. Finally he said, I want to show all of this. I said all of it. He said every single piece. It's a body of work. It needs to be shown together. I said okay. He said, can you be ready in 4 months? I said yes. Those 4 months were chaos. Good chaos. Creating more work. Refining pieces. Working with Martin on the installation. He had ideas. Big ideas. Wanted to recreate a family dinner table in the middle of the gallery. Have my pieces on the walls surrounding it. The table would be set. But empty. No food. No people. Just the ghost of family. I loved it. We sourced a table. Chairs. Plates. Everything secondhand. From thrift stores. Estate sales. The table was worn. The chairs mismatched. Perfect. Like a real family. Imperfect. Broken in places. The show opened on a Thursday. Or was it Friday? Opening reception from 6 to 9. I wore black. Only outfit I had that felt right. Martin said we'd sent invitations to major collectors. Critics. Other gallery owners. Said this could change my career. I didn't believe him. Or maybe I did. I don't know. Stood in the gallery watching people arrive. Watching them walk around my work. Reading titles. Medical bill number 7. Family portrait number 12. The table where I wasn't welcome. People asked questions. About my process. About the meaning. I answered honestly. This is about my family. About being ignored. About medical bills they wouldn't help with. About choosing myself finally. Some people looked uncomfortable. Some people nodded like they understood. One woman started crying in front of family portrait number 3. Said it reminded her of her own family. Her own exclusion. We hugged. Strangers hugging in a gallery. By the end of the night we'd sold 18 pieces. 18 out of 40. Martin was ecstatic. Said this never happens at opening receptions. Prices ranged from $2,000 to $8,000 per piece. After gallery commission I'd make maybe $60,000. Or $70,000. I sat down. Had to sit down. Martin brought me water. Said, are you okay? I said that's how much my parents gave Marcus. He said what? I said nothing. Just. This is surreal. The show ran for 6 weeks. By the end we'd sold 32 pieces. Total sales were around $200,000. My cut was about $120,000 after commission. More money than I'd ever seen. More money than my parents had probably made in a year. Paid off my medical bills. The ones still hanging over me. Paid off my student loans. All of them. The balance went to 0. Felt like deleting weight. Like I could breathe deeper suddenly. Put a down payment on a small commercial space. Not just a studio. A real gallery. My own gallery. I'd work with other artists. Curate shows. But also show my own work. Create my own opportunities instead of waiting for them. The gallery took 6 months to set up. Renovations. Permits. Business licenses. All the bureaucracy. Emma helped. She had business experience. Helped me navigate everything. The gallery opened a year and a half after my solo show. We called it Threshold Gallery. The space between one thing and another. Between family and solitude. Between trauma and healing. Between struggling artist and successful one. Martin said it was a perfect name. My parents didn't know about any of this. I'd blocked them years ago. 3 years. Or 4 years. Since the hospital. They had no access to my life. No updates. No information. I'd moved apartments twice. Changed my number. Existed completely separate from them. Until last month. Or maybe 6 weeks ago. My mother found the gallery. I don't know how. Maybe she searched my name. Maybe someone told her. Maybe coincidence. But she found it. Showed up on a Tuesday afternoon. I was hanging a show. New artist. Young painter. Needed help with the heavier pieces. I was on a ladder when the door opened. Bells chimed. I looked down. My mother standing there. Older than I remembered. Grayer. Lines around her mouth. She stared at me. I stared at her. Neither of us said anything for maybe 30 seconds. Or a minute. Time did that stretchy thing. I came down from the ladder. Didn't rush. Took my time. She was still standing by the door when I reached the floor. She said, Elena. I said, this is a private installation. Gallery's closed. She said, I know this is sudden. I said, you need to leave. She said, please, I just want to talk. I said, we don't have anything to talk about. She said, I'm your mother. I said, that's debatable. She said, what? I said, you heard me. Being someone's mother is more than biology. You chose Marcus. Fine. Live with that choice. She said, it's not that simple. I said, it's exactly that simple. You gave Marcus $60,000 for a restaurant. Wouldn't help with $15,000 in medical bills. That's a choice. She said, we made mistakes. I said, you made choices. There's a difference. She started crying. Standing there in my gallery crying. I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt something. Satisfaction. Vindication. Definitely didn't feel guilt. She said, I didn't know you were doing so well. I said, why would you know? You're not in my life. She said, I saw your website. Saw the gallery. The reviews. The sales. Said your father would be proud. I said, I don't care what my father thinks. Don't care what you think. Built this without you. Don't need your approval now. She said, Marcus is struggling. I said, okay. She said he lost another job. Needs help. I said, hire a therapist. She said, we were hoping you could. I stopped. Said what? She said, you have money now. Success. Family helps family. I laughed. Actually laughed. She looked offended. I said, family helps family. Where was that philosophy when I was in the hospital? She said, I told you money was tight. I said money was tight enough to refuse $15,000 for medical bills. Not tight enough to have given Marcus $60,000 years before. Not tight enough to help him now apparently. She said, that's different. I said, stop saying that. It's not different. You chose him. You've always chosen him. She said, we love both of you equally. I said, that's the biggest lie you've ever told. You don't love me. You tolerate me. You've tolerated me my entire life. She said, that's not true. I said, prove it. Name one time you chose me over Marcus. One time you put my needs first. Silence. She couldn't. Or wouldn't. I said, that's what I thought. You need to leave now. She said, can we at least talk about this? I said, no. She said, Elena, please. I said, I'm calling the police if you don't leave. She left. Stood outside the gallery for maybe 20 minutes. I watched her through the window. Standing there. Looking in. Like she was trying to understand how I'd gotten here. How the daughter she'd dismissed had built something beautiful. She came back the next day. And the day after. Started parking across the street. Just sitting in her car. Watching the gallery. I didn't engage. Didn't acknowledge her. Went about my business. My father showed up the following week. Knocked on the gallery door during business hours. Couldn't refuse him without refusing potential customers. Let him in. He looked around. At the art. At the space. At what I'd created. He said, this is impressive. I said, thank you. He said, we had no idea you were talented. I said, that's because you never paid attention. He said, that's not fair. I said, it's completely fair. He said, your mother told me you refused to help Marcus. I said, your mother was correct. He said, he's your brother. I said, he's your son. You help him. He said, we've helped him plenty. I said, exactly. He said, you're being selfish. I said, I'm being honest. There's a difference. You wanted me to be responsible. Take care of myself. I did that. Now you want me to take care of Marcus too. That's not my job. He said, family takes care of each other. I said, family takes care of each other. You've said that twice now. Where was that energy when I needed help? He said, we couldn't afford it then. I said, but you could afford $60,000 for Marcus's restaurant. He said, that was years ago. I said, it was 6 years ago. 7 years ago. Medical bills don't have expiration dates. The damage you did doesn't have an expiration date. He said, we made our best decisions at the time. I said, your best decisions included telling me I'd made my choices. Telling me my medical bills were a personal problem. Do you remember saying that? He said, I might have been harsh. I said, you were cruel. He said, I was trying to teach you responsibility. I said, you taught me something. Just not what you intended. Taught me I can't count on you. Taught me I'm on my own. Taught me that's actually okay. Better than okay. I'm better off without you. He said, you don't mean that. I said, I completely mean that. Look around. I built this. Me. Not you. Not Marcus. Not anyone. Just me. And it's better than anything you ever gave Marcus. He said Marcus's restaurant failed because of the economy. Bad timing. I said Marcus's restaurant failed because he wasn't ready. Because you gave him money before he'd earned it. Before he'd proven himself. You did him no favors. You did me no favors either. But at least I learned to do things myself. He left angry. Slammed the gallery door. The bells chimed violently. Emma came out from the back. Said I heard everything. Asked if I was okay. I said I'm fine. She said you're shaking. I looked at my hands. Was shaking. Adrenaline probably. Sat down. Emma brought me tea. The good kind. The kind I kept for customers. We sat in silence. Finally she said, I'm proud of you. I said, for what? She said, for standing your ground. For not giving in. I said, I don't know what else I would do. She said a lot of people would give in. Would help family even when family didn't help them. I said, I'm not a lot of people. She said, no. You're definitely not. My parents kept coming. Together. Separately. Sometimes they'd park across the street. Just watching. Sometimes they'd come in. Pretend to browse. Try to start conversations. I stopped engaging. Told my staff to tell them the owner wasn't available. Then Marcus showed up. That was 2 weeks ago. Or 3 weeks. He came during a busy Saturday. Gallery full of people. Opening reception for a new show. I was talking to a collector. Older woman. Interested in buying a large piece. Marcus walked up. Said, Elena. The collector looked confused. I said, "Excuse me one moment." Walked Marcus outside. Stood on the sidewalk. He said, "I heard you wouldn't help me." I said, "That's correct." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Because you're not my responsibility." He said, "I'm your brother." I said, "Biologically." He said, "What does that mean?" I said, "It means we share DNA. That's it. We don't share a relationship. Don't share mutual support. Don't share anything that matters." He said, "I didn't know you were angry about the restaurant money." I said, "It's not about the restaurant money." He said, "Mom said it was." I said, "Mom's wrong. It's about a lifetime of being invisible. Of being the afterthought. Of watching you get everything while I got nothing." He said, "That's not true." I said, "Name one thing I got that you didn't." He couldn't. Or wouldn't. I said, "Exactly. You got the car. The paid tuition. The $60,000 for your dream. I got a bus pass. Student loans. And told I didn't deserve help when I needed it most." He said, "I didn't know it was like that for you." I said, "That's because you never asked. Never noticed. Never cared. Too busy being the golden child." He said, "That's not fair." I said, "It's completely fair. You benefited from their favoritism. Don't pretend you didn't notice." He said, "I need help, Elena." I said, "Hire a therapist." He said, "I need money." I said, "Get a job." He said, "I have a job. It doesn't pay enough." I said, "That sounds like a personal problem." He looked shocked. I said, "What?" He said, "Dad said that to you. About your medical bills." I said, "He did." He said, "That was cruel." I said, "It was. And now I'm saying it to you. Because I learned from the best. I learned that family doesn't help. Family judges. Family ranks. Family chooses favorites." He said, "I'm sorry." I said, "For what?" He said, "For not noticing. For taking the money. For being their favorite." I said, "You're not sorry for being their favorite. You're sorry I'm not helping you now. There's a difference." He left. Haven't seen him since. But my mother's car is still there sometimes. Parked across the street. Watching. Waiting. I don't know what she's waiting for. For me to break. To feel guilty. To help despite everything. Not going to happen. Dr. Yun asked me how I felt about all this. About them showing up. About them asking for money now. I said, angry. She said, "What else?" I said, vindicated. "What else?" Sad. "What else?" Tired. She said, "That's a lot of emotions." I said, "I contain multitudes." She smiled. Said, "Sounds like you're processing this well." I said, "I don't know about well. I'm just processing it." She said, "They're experiencing what you experienced." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "You needed help and they refused. Now they need help and you're refusing. They're learning what it feels like to be dismissed by family." I said, "I'm not dismissing them. I'm setting boundaries." She said, "There's overlap." "But yes, you're setting boundaries. How does that feel?" I said, "Good." "Scary?" "Good." She said, "It's okay for it to feel both ways." I said, "I know." She said, "Do you feel guilty?" I said, "Sometimes." She said, "That's normal." Said, "Guilt is the last hold toxic families have on us. Learning to let go of it is the final step. I'm working on it. The letting go. Some days are easier than others. Some days I see my mother's car and feel nothing. Other days I see it and want to go out there. Want to explain everything again. Want to make her understand. But I don't. Because she won't understand. Or can't. Either way, it doesn't matter. I've explained enough. Set enough boundaries. Said enough. Now I just exist in my life. My successful life. My chosen life. The gallery's doing well. Really well. We've shown 40 artists in 2 years. Sold work to major collectors. Got reviewed in national publications. I've created more of my own work. Another solo show scheduled for next year. I bought a condo. Not a mansion. Nothing ostentatious. Just a nice 2-bedroom in a good neighborhood. Hardwood floors. Updated kitchen. Space for a small home studio. Paid 30% down. Mortgage is manageable. Everything I own is mine. Earned by me. Built by me. Emma asks if I'm happy. I say mostly. She says mostly. I say some days I'm happy. Other days I'm content. Other days I'm just tired. But none of those days do I regret cutting them off. She asks if I'll ever reconcile. I say probably not. She says never say never. I say I'm saying never. She says what if they apologize? I say they've had years to apologize. Haven't yet. Words without changed behavior are just manipulation. Dr. Yun says the same thing. Says real apology requires change. Requires acknowledging harm. Requires making amends. My parents haven't done any of that. They've shown up at my gallery. Asked for money. Tried to guilt me. That's not apology. That's attempted manipulation. I'm stronger than that now. Stronger than the girl who asked for help with medical bills. Stronger than the teenager who wanted a car like her brother. Stronger than the child who wanted to be noticed. Don't need their notice anymore. Don't need their approval. Don't need anything from them. Built a life without them. A good life. A meaningful life. Sometimes late at night I think about what could have been. If they'd helped with the medical bills. If they'd supported my art. If they'd treated me like they treated Marcus. Would I be happier? Would they be in my life? Would things be different? But those thoughts don't last long. Because I know the answer. They wouldn't have changed. One instance of help wouldn't have fixed a lifetime of neglect. Wouldn't have made me the favorite. Wouldn't have balanced the scales. The only thing that changed anything was me leaving. Me choosing myself. Me building something they couldn't take credit for. Something they couldn't diminish. Something entirely mine. The gallery is mine. The art is mine. The success is mine. The life is mine. They can park across the street. Can watch. Can ask. Can demand. Doesn't change anything. I'm not theirs anymore. Never really was. That's my story. That's how I went from dismissed daughter to gallery owner. From medical bills they wouldn't help with to success they can't ignore. Not through revenge. Not through hatred. Through choosing myself when no one else would. My mother still parks across the street sometimes. I've stopped noticing. Or I notice but don't react. She's part of the scenery now. Like traffic. Like weather. Something happening outside my window that doesn't affect what's happening inside. Inside my gallery is warmth. Is community. Is art that heals. Is artists who needed a chance. Is collectors who appreciate beauty. Is staff who respect me. Is success that's mine.